Hey everybody, JP here, and today we are going to talk about Andy Wallace snare drum reverb. Now, Andy was quite infamously known for carrying around some samples of more ambient type sounds like reverb trails, not exactly a full drum sound for a sample. Well, this is how he came upon that. This is how he used to create those sounds to begin with, and then just found it easier to use samples of them, especially when he was mixing in a lot of different studios before he took up his residency at Soundtrack in the 2000s. So there's a few things that we need. There is a third copy now of that snare top track. You know, we used two of them last time around. Now we've got a third one. That also has an E channel on it with extreme tight gate. We'll listen to all this in a moment. The other important things you need are some variation on the old Lexicon PCM70 tiled room reverb setting. And I'm using Valhalla vintage Verb for this. I think it's fantastic. This is the main part of this sound. It's definitely the most important thing you'll need to get it. The next thing is going to be some sort of white noise signal generator. I'm just using the signal generator plugin that comes with ProTools. You're going to need a keyable gate following that. And then you're going to need some sort of pitch shifter or harmonizer plugin. I'm using the Eventide H949. It's my favorite sounding one for this purpose. Andy Wallace used to use an AMS DMX 1580 sample delay unit for this. They do make that plugin for the, UAD makes it for the Apollo. They don't have a native version, so I haven't played around with that yet, but I really like this one. And those are the only must-haves to do this. The rest of the stuff is going to come down to how we apply it. So let's give it a listen. So those are our two snare tracks from the last video. We've got our regular snare and then our hyped top end snare. And now this third track, we mute the white noise for now. So this is just a tightly gated and slightly hyped copy of our original snare. So Andy would use the Patch Bay mults in an analog studio for this back in the day. You would take the snare from tape and you'd send it to a bank of mults where one input would give you like 3 or 4 outputs. So that way you'd be able to have that snare top across 3 different faders just like this, and they'd be exact copies. So we've got this one going through this E channel with a super tight gate. It's tough to tell when it's fast, but yeah, we're gating the heck out of it. And we're hyping the top a little bit. Here, it's kind of flat without that. But what we're doing to it here is specifically for the reverb send. This track does not go to the drum bus or mix. It's going out to bus 1, and bus 1 feeds tiled room. See, if you mute tiled room, you lose it altogether. We're also sending a pre-fade unity gain send down bus 3, which comes up here to we've got our signal generator on white noise, and then we've got a keyable gate after it. The gate is being keyed off bus 3. If we bypass the gate, listen to it by itself. So that's your white noise. Now I like this gate because it's got independent hold and release controls, so you can really shape the decay envelope of the sound. But plenty of people have done this just with an SSL gate and gotten great results. Now the real fun, we go to the harmonizer. And just to show you what it's doing, that's without it. White noise is pretty harsh without it. So it smooths out the sound. Just the sound of this plugin really does smooth out the white noise to begin with, but we're also detuning it here, and we're at about a 70% mix. Now, how did I find the right pitch to detune it to? I just listened to it along with the snare. So if we go back up to 0 here, we're close to it. Here, the pitch goes lower on that trail. Actually, a little more obvious with the mix full. You can even go higher sometimes. That could work really nicely for the right song. Or you can go lower. But I thought this was just about right. And I like to pull the mix back a little bit to let some of that higher white noise in. So let me bypass this. So that was essentially what Andy Wallace's snare samples sound like. They're these little pops, these little white noise pops that he uses. He triggers them from the drum, and then they feed the reverb unit. And then he also does have other samples with the trail on it. And that was really just in case the studio didn't have a PCM 70 or something similar to his liking. Now there's one more thing we're doing here. Actually, a couple more. If we go up to the tiled room, on the reverb return side of that, I've also got this Shep 73 to add a little analog color to it. And this is to kind of enhance that PCM 70 vintage digital vibe. Without it, it's a little bland. I'm also boosting a little 4.8K, but the drive is the main thing here. It just really colors it in a nice way. And then I've got another instance of the Eventide harmonizer on the reverb return. This time I'm actually pitching it up slightly, and I'm on 100% mix. Hear that? I just thought pitching it up a little sat better in the mix with everything else. So you could play around with this. Again, these settings, they're gonna vary. They're gonna vary based on the drum and based on the song. But it should give you a good starting point. And I really like having these on separate faders because in a part of a song like this, I would pull back the send. Maybe even the white noise a little here. And this is different than pulling back the reverb return. I'll explain why in a moment. You might want to fill it in here a little bit. I'm exaggerating that, but you see what I mean. Here. As you see, when you vary the send, it really changes the reaction of the reverb and the drive to the reverb. And I find this really useful in a mix rather than just automating the reverb return level. Because when you vary the return level, the reverb's doing the same thing, it's just a lower level. When you vary the send, you're actually changing how it reacts. And of all people, Andy Wallace was really the king of moving things subtly within a mix to keep the listener sort of subconsciously engaged without distracting from the importance of the song itself. So there's a lot of moving things going on in the mix, but not moving to the degree where it's going to pull you away from the melody or the vocal or the lyrics or whatever the most important part of the song is. It's a psychoacoustic trick, because if things stay the same throughout a mix, your brain starts to ignore them. He also does this with bass, and we're going to get into that in the next video, because there's a really, really unique thing that he does to keep the bass moving within the song. But I love this. If you focus on some of his mixes, you'll notice that the snare reverb varies, even sometimes within the same bar. If the drummer is hitting the snare on the 2s and 4s, there might be a little more reverb on the 2 and less on the 4, especially if the drummer's about to go into a fill before the next downbeat. So he keeps that moving very dynamically, and by automating the send rather than the return, you have more control over the way the reverb reacts, which I think is very effective and useful. And hopefully you found this video effective and useful. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll be back with plenty more later.